Hello, my name is Nick LaFleur, and that means you're listening to the Age of Agility podcast by QuickBase, the show where we talk about managing complex projects better. In this episode, we're joined by a technology strategist. He's the founder of Jaybird Technologies, which helps companies improve their operations with scalable technology. He's here to talk with us about process and continuous improvement, some of our favorite things, and he's going to share some insights from his experience working with these companies that are going through digital transformation. So without any more build up, here he is. Welcome to the show, Justin Torrence. Hey, Justin.
Hi, Nick.
Welcome. How's it going?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're glad to have you here. I'm really excited to talk about kind of what you do and how you help companies, do things just a little bit better with smarter technology. So
happy to be here.
Cool. Let's dive in. So, tell us about who you are, how you got to what you're doing now, and I don't know, anything else that we should know about you.
Yeah. I guess I've had a passion for technology since I was, a little one, and it's kind of followed me throughout my career. 7 or 8 years ago, I was a SAP super user for a propane company, and basically what that means is I worked as a liaison between like field operations and IT during a ERP rollout, and just kind of stumbled into that through my interest in technology. And then sometime later ended up taking a job at Logical Position in sales, and heard they needed a database administrator. I didn't think I was qualified, but a good friend of mine kind of encouraged me and pushed me to take a leap of faith. And so I interviewed the director of IT, asked me to build an application. They were using QuickBase, and I learned it over the weekend and built an order entry app that impressed the team. And so they gave me a shot. I've been working in QuickBase ever since, and still serve with Logical Position as their manager of enterprise applications, but I moonlight as the founder of Jaybird Technologies, and helping companies, build their companies digitally.
Cool. So, what kind of companies do you work with doing that? What are they trying to do? What kind of problems are they trying to solve?
Yeah, I mentioned Logical Position. They're a digital marketing company. They're trying to really deliver the best end-to-end digital marketing experience to their customers. Basically what that means is, delivering insights to their employees about various advertising campaigns, and those insights are actionable. So you might find a digital marketing specialist would get some information and then implement that change in that advertising campaign. I work with a telehealth provider who specializes in chronic care coordination, and they need to keep track of hundreds of patients with unique care plans, and they have to distribute those care plans digitally and via paper as well through the mail, and they need to deliver that documentation for every one of those patients on a monthly basis.
You don't hear about the mail being kind of a typical thing these days, and that's pretty cool. So, when you start working with these companies, what is it about these projects that gets you excited? They all sound pretty complex.
Honestly, it's the people who I work with who are get me excited about these projects. When they, tell you about their idea for an application or for a product that they're trying to launch, usually we're doing these over, a Zoom call. You can almost see a sparkle in their eyes, and you can just tell that they're truly passionate about what they're trying to deliver to their customers. And I think that's really what gets me jazzed up about working with them. And so long as I can, see the same vision that they can, that's typically a project that I'll take on.
That's so cool. It's like you're in it because you really like helping people kind of reach that vision, right?
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
I could create a bunch of applications, but if there's nobody to use those applications or consume those applications, then they're kind of just there.
Yeah. So, kind of going back to some of your clients and the people you work with, and thinking about when we first met, you mentioned something about process that really stuck with me, and it's that process can be a competitive advantage. So I wanted to wonder if you could expand on that a little bit, because I feel like that's something our listeners would really like.
Yeah. I mean, you can build all manner of applications in QuickBase, and I've heard the phrase, if you describe it, we can build it, and it's, really inspiring. There's a lot of different things that you can build. I think sometimes it's really easy to get lost in that and building some complex functionality that already exists in the marketplace. For instance, there's lots of companies whose entire business model is delivering financial applications. But I think that if you aren't in the business of selling financial applications, building your own, it's easy to get lost in that. A simple financial application makes sense, but when you're building all of the functionality of something that already exists, it distracts from what you're truly delivering to your customers, which is, at the end of the day, is your process. In some cases, it may take form of a physical product or, an interaction or an experience. But the process of delivering those experiences, delivering those products is what makes you special as a company. Oftentimes, it's not your financial application that makes you special, unless you sell financial applications. So I would encourage those who really want to build out robust functionality for something that isn't core to their business to actually focus on what is core to their business and use technology to integrate with things that are already out there.
I mean, that's great advice. Basically, don't reinvent the wheel, right? If you can avoid it. But,
yeah, I had a friend tell me that early on in my career, and I think maybe it's stuck with me ever since, and I try to remember it everywhere I go.
No, it's good. I mean, I think that's it, you're talking about kind of focusing on what's important and core, right? And it's that's. It's funny how many kind of lessons, whether it's about work or about interacting with others, where it really comes down to just that, right? Focus on what's important first, and then the rest of it, see where you can find a built-in or a pre-existing solution, right?
Yeah, that's where you can deliver your most value is through the processes that nobody else knows about, that only you can fulfill.
That's so cool. So thinking about kind of the same thing, when you're talking to companies and you're figuring out what is that core process with them, what is the advice that you find yourself giving people often when you're beginning the development process with them?
Yeah, the first big thing is to have a goal and to sort of really, at least an initial goal. Goals can change over time, but if you don't have a core goal that you're driving towards, again, it's easy to get lost in all the noise. You can build all sorts of features and conditions and functionality that don't really serve you or the business. And so if you start with a goal and work around that and develop new goals, then I feel like that's a great place to start. You're going to get a lot further than if you just say, hey, we need this app, so build this app. Have a goal in mind first, and then sort of pivot off of that.
That's so cool. All right, so when you're doing that though, sorry, totally just flipped that there. So you're talking to them about kind of setting goals and having parameters for kind of how you're defining this project, how you're defining success. What are some other things that you find yourself, especially with people who've never worked with software development before, there's often a lot of terminology and stuff that comes along with and in process that people need to learn, or as they start working more with you, right? So I think I'm trying to get at like starting to introduce the concept of like continuous improvement.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of tee that up for you, but it's like, how, I want to say like introducing the idea of continuous improvement, and then we can say, hey, why is this such a thing that we hear about now? Like, why is this so important? When we first talked, I remember you mentioned something about like, you often are coaching people to understand like what that means and how it's like an evolving process. Right. And you're saying like, hey, we can't go from 0% automated to 100% automated first. We have to kind of like get halfway there and then evaluate what's stopping us from getting to that like final position.
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, goals can expand and change, and something that I find companies can get caught up in is maybe they have a goal and they're trying to achieve that, and maybe we're creating this application and we've gotten ourselves sort of 80% of the way there. And the remaining 20% is the really difficult challenge. It's the stuff that we need to evolve and learn over time. It's something that if you tried to solve all of it all at once, you would spend too much time focusing on that, and you'd never deliver value. You'd never deliver the application. And I feel like I say this all the time, but perfect is the enemy of good. And I think that if you can deal with something that is, or I guess if you can operate on something that's 80% of the way there, I think there are a lot of significant insights that you can gather just by using that application, even at 80%, that you wouldn't have been able to establish trying to get your application to 100% from the beginning. So if you launch it and then you learn from it, you learn what the pain points are, you learn what learn the bottlenecks, and sometimes you learn the things that you thought were valuable aren't actually valuable. They don't serve the overall application. That's okay. You should take those things out. You should always be removing and adding things back in.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I think as technology becomes bigger part of the world and how business gets done, these concepts from the development world start kind of becoming part of typical business practices. So like this idea of continuous improvement is so important, but it's like it's actually a really great way to approach things, because it's like, you don't exhaust yourself trying to run the whole race at once. It's a relay race, right? So like you get to a certain point and then you check in and you say, okay, what do we need to do to finish this race?
Exactly. You should always be learning from your past selves and trying to use that to improve your capabilities.
For sure. And why, for somebody who's like kind of stuck in process and they're feeling frustrated because perfectionism's kind of rampant, I'd say, in amongst creative types and people who create things like applications. But so somebody who's at a company and they're working in a spreadsheet that's loaded with 1 million macros, and it's not the right solution for them, but they're trying to figure it out. What kind of advice would you give them? How can they get started with this idea of continuous improvement in their own. Sorry, did that feel weird? Is that a weird question for you?
No,
Okay.
it's a good question. I'm just trying to like really put myself in that place and think about what I would say to this person. I think that when you're, generally speaking, a spreadsheet is going to give you, let's say that it's 5% automation, and a quickly stood up application can give you about 80%, and your goal is 100%. I think there's a lot to gain from 5% automation to 80% automation, even though it's not 100%. And if you take a step back and you
I also don't get hung up on the spreadsheet thing. It can honestly, it's like, I feel like you probably run into this when you talk to folks, and it's like when you're kind of in a discovery phase with somebody and you're trying to figure out what they're trying to do, and you're asking them what they're doing currently to manage the process. Like, what's sort of the first step? Like, what's the first step in your mind to like create, a plan for continuous improvement, or to like start incorporating it in how you work? It might seem a little redundant, I guess, because it is sort of like kind of that story you told about getting to kind of benchmarks and evaluating. So,
So maybe I can talk about like minimum viable product, and just sort of talk about establishing what that minimum viable product might look like, and what are the things that you absolutely couldn't live without, and then like starting with that, maybe.
Yeah, I think a good way to tee this up too might be to say like something like, because you kind of really stressed the importance of goals and how that helps frame what you're doing. So maybe you could even go back, pick up on that thread, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can't, unless you know what the goal is, you can't create milestones, right? So like you gotta like kind of fill in the blanks as you go, or develop as you go. What's the phrase people say? Build the plane while you're flying it. I'm sorry, not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think maybe that's a good way to kind of bring it back that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to I guess digest this and figure out how I'm gonna bring it back out. But
so okay, let me cue. Let's like start. Like we kind of talked out like the path for this, but let me like reintroduce it for you. We just start from the beginning. So, we talked a lot about kind of how you approach things with businesses and how you kind of get these big projects off the ground. But, for somebody who's maybe the only tech savvy person at their company, or somebody who's trying to build better practices into how they do work, what's something that they could take away from, and start doing today?
Yeah, I would work on, for this big project, establishing what your minimum viable product is. And that just means the core components of the application that, that contribute towards its success. Establish what you would need at a bare minimum to get this application off the ground, to get it in users' hands, and then sort of fill in the gaps from there. You'll learn from building the application. You'll learn from how people are using the application, and you'll learn from the type of data that's added to the application what you need to fill in those gaps with, and what you need to expand as you move forward.
No, I mean that's great advice, because unless you know what, like what defines done, or first stage of done, like how can you, improve from there, right?
Exactly.
All right, so I'm going to try out a new question with you, because we used to ask folks about agility all the time because of our show, Age of Agility. But there's like kind of this new question I want to ask our guests, which is because we're all about helping organizations solve complex projects. And I feel like that's something that's pretty common with the work you do too. At what point does a project become complex for you?
That's a good question. I think a project becomes complex when the number of roles and responsibilities that it is interfacing with or interacting with, you know, I mean, it's hard to put like an exact number on this. Like if you exceed 10 different roles, this is a complex application. But there's a certain point with the number of processes and roles that you're touching that things start to become complex. And I think when you sort of find yourself at this point where it's like, man, I'm having a real hard time tracking all of the moving pieces that are happening with this. I think you're probably at a point where you need to reconsider the goals of that application or that project. Get back to core goals, but then you've established these new goals and you've added all of these components that have filled in the gaps. These components, well, they're probably complex enough to be broken out into their own applications at this point. You probably have enough of a foundation there to warrant its own attention, assuming it serves the business, of course. That deserves its own attention, its own development, and its own, it has its own gaps to fill.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like what you were saying about like the number of roles or responsibilities, right? It's like it's totally, when there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, then you're like, okay, wait a minute, this is getting a little too complicated.
It's really hard to quantify like at what stage that is. I don't know like how you would tell when something is meets the meets the conditions of complex, but I think you know it when you see it.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't think that there's like you said, there's no quantifiable answer, I think. But it's like, it's like when you start noticing that there's a lot of different roles and responsibilities, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? I think that's a good flag for people to think about.
Exactly.
So, we talked a lot about work and some, kind of nerdy stuff, but like, how are you doing? What's going on in your world, and what are you getting excited for in the next few months?
Yeah, things are going great. I just bought my first house, which is a really, exciting and also scary experience, especially in this market. That's kind of crazy and wild. So that's
congratulations.
Thank you. So that's kind of what's top of mind right now. That's kind of consuming a lot of my world.
I can only imagine. That's cool. Are you have you been reading or watching or listening to anything cool lately?
Yeah, I just finished up the most recent series of The Witcher and Stranger Things. Actually, just last night, just finished the last episode of the most recent season. That was really good.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've been hearing good things.
Yeah, it's this one, they really build the tension. They know how to build the tension now. So,
is this the final season of it?
Oh no, they left it on a huge cliffhanger.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully, no spoilers there, but
I think that's expected at this point. So, and then finally, where can folks kind of keep up with you? Where can they learn about the stuff you're doing and the kind of work you do?
Yeah, I'm going to have to grab a couple of these because I don't have. So do people just usually just do I guess LinkedIn would probably be good.
Yeah, LinkedIn's our main place. And then if you're particularly active elsewhere, then I'd say give that a shout. But
yeah,
I would just say look me up on LinkedIn, and say your name and Jaybird Technologies.
Yeah.
Follow me and the company.
Yeah.
That's usually kind of a good solid win. And then, maybe the name of your website, if that's something you use as part of your marketing.
Cool. Yeah, I think LinkedIn would probably be my biggest channel. So maybe I'll just say, you can reach me on LinkedIn and
you can say I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can follow me there, or you can connect with me there.
Okay, cool.
Or Jaybird Technologies or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right, so we'll do that one more time.
Yep.
So where can people follow your work and learn about what you're up to?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can follow me or Jaybird Technologies there. You can also visit my website, jaybirdtechnologies.com.
Cool. And, thanks for joining us. I really appreciated your time today, and it was a really good conversation. I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you as well. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. And to all of you out there, thanks for joining us on the Age of Agility. You can find us on quickbase.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And we'll catch you in a couple more weeks to hear more stories and advice from people managing some of the world's most complex projects. Thanks again for joining us, Justin. Goodbye.
Thank you.